Today we're tackling a heavy topic that's not normally talked about in the Muslim community, which is about spiritual abuse by religious leaders, which can include sexual and physical abuse. This is then a warning that the content in this program might be difficult for some viewers, and perhaps it's either best to turn it off, or if you need to get help, we'll give you some numbers at the end. We have with us Dr Ingrid Mattson, who's the founder of the Herma Project, designed to tackle this issue in our community, and we'll be just talking with her about what it is and her project. First, I'd like to welcome you to the show, Dr Ingrid. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
We have, as community leaders, come across people come and share their stories with us of spiritual and sexual and physical abuse. May Allah help everyone. But in November, there was a very public article written by a former student of an Islamic boarding school about the pervasive abuse, physical, sexual, that happened to the students in the school. And it struck me that this was kind of unusual, this public statement. What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, it is unusual, and I believe it shows the extent to which people have found really no other options for rectifying this problem. We know that in all of these cases, those who are victimized first disclose their abuse to many, many people, and they try to seek help. They try to find someone within the institution or within their circle to help rectify the problem. And unfortunately, again and again, they face roadblocks. And very often what drives those who have survived abuse to finally come forward publicly is their desire to prevent others from being victimized. It's usually out of that deep sense of fear that it will happen again to others.
I mean, that's just like a sense of duty. Why does it fall on deaf ears? It's such a horrible thing to have happened. Why doesn't our community just go, oh my God, what can we do about this?
Unfortunately, it is such a common human reaction wherever we see abuse by those who have any kind of power and authority, whether it's in athletics or education, business, and in religious institutions. It's just very, very common. It is the first reaction that people have, and people, don't want to believe it. Believing it means that some action would need to be taken, and that's often a very sobering prospect. Unfortunately, Dr. Kathy, there's also just the, a kind of built-in power dynamics where certain kind of persons are elevated to such an extent that their being human and subject to human failings becomes inconceivable to people. And that's a real problem.
So what is the Herma Project?
Hurma, the word Hurma is an Islamic legal term that means the sacred inviolability of the human person. It's a beautiful concept. It's one of the last things that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam spoke about to the Muslim community, which is that this hurma, the sacred inviolability of the believer and of humans in general, is so important, so sacred and profound that it equals the sacrality of the sacred months and the holy cities. So it is so important that we elevate this dignity and respect and inviolability of the human, of our fellow believers, to the extent that we care about, all the symbols of Islam.
And we have in our title, Preventing Spiritual Abuse in the Muslim Community. I'm sure this is a phrase unfamiliar. Can you define it for us?
Right. So spiritual abuse is the abuse of religious concepts, status, authority, or power in order to harm others. And it usually is sort of the added factor on top of other forms of abuse. So bullying, physical abuse, sexual abuse, financial exploitation, when those things are enabled or justified or rationalized through religious power, authority, status, using Islamic terms, then it becomes spiritual abuse, and it harms the victim's spiritual life and relationship with their religion and with God.
So the Hurma Project you've founded, I believe, a couple of years ago to try to tackle this. This is an immensely deep and complex and traumatic situation for our community. How are you going about trying to tackle this?
Yes, it is a very serious issue, and it's all of our responsibility as a community to address it. And that's why we're working with people who have all different kinds of expertise, with psychologists and Muslim therapists, with imams and scholars, with community activists and educators, because we need the knowledge and the experience and the wisdom of all of those, including those who have survived, various forms of abuse. So together, we are trying to understand why it happens, how we can prevent it, and how we can respond in those cases. Even if, despite our best efforts, it still happens, then we need to understand the best way to respond.
We don't have a lot of time left, but can you give us maybe one or two examples of what it might be?
Sure. So we see, unfortunately, examples where vulnerable women who come to an imam or a sheikh or a teacher for some guidance, some support, because they face difficulties in their life. Maybe they've been divorced, maybe they've been abused, maybe they're new converts who have been cut off from their families. And they come for that spiritual solace, but then their vulnerability is used to convince them to enter into an intimate relationship that is often exploitative. It may be a secret marriage where they aren't protected by the law and by the community. It may even be an extramarital relationship that this person with so much religious knowledge justifies to someone who is so vulnerable and doesn't understand.
And is this the thing that's called grooming? I've heard about this concept called grooming.
Grooming is an interesting concept because it can occur. It can be done towards individuals, and it can be done to communities as a whole. So grooming is their very slow process of exploiting the vulnerabilities and weaknesses of an individual, so that they get in the point where it becomes difficult, or sometimes even psychologically impossible, for them to resist. But whole communities can be groomed as well. And this is why we see the disbelief often when it's a prominent figure who exploits or abuses others. They've spent a lot of time building up their image in the community, and people hold them in such high esteem that even when the facts are in front of them, the evidence is in front of them, maybe even a conviction in court, they still will not believe it, because they've been groomed with this by this person, so that they simply cannot accept that this person would have caused
like the idol
harm.
syndrome, putting them on the pedestal and not wanting to see it topple. Now we're out of time, but if someone's been watching and they're feeling totally distressed, something got triggered in their mind that it might have happened to them or someone that they know, what can they do?
Well, we do have some resources on the Herma Project website, which is hurma.com. You can look for resources for immediate support. You can also reach out to a hotline like Nasiha hotline that can provide you with some immediate support and give you a referral, a further referral if you might need that, to have more extensive conversation about how you're feeling.
And what about the wider community? It might not happen to them directly, but what can we do to help get rid of this problem?
I mean, what we have to realize is it is happening to all of us, in the sense that if someone in any of our institutions is we're all contributing to the Muslim community. We're giving donations, and we're giving time, we're giving support, we're upping, the image of these institutions on social media. So, all of us, whether we know it or not, have been exploited in some way by some of these abusers, and because it is so pervasive. So we need to be adult, and we need to take responsibility for our community. There is no one other than us who's responsible for our communities.
So be responsible. And I'm sorry we have to end it there, but thank you very much for coming on and talking to us about this deeply difficult topic.
Thanks so much for inviting me here today, Dr. Kathy.
You've been watching Canadian Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Stay tuned for the next episode. Stay safe and God bless.